Hi, I'm Sue Trazo, and this is my home in Bethel Park, and we're here today to take a nice little garden tour and maybe explain a couple of the more interesting plants. So welcome to our yard. Okay, this is the area on the corner of our yard. When we moved in, it used to be all Pachysandra, and I wanted some more interesting and varied plants. So this is a rose bush that I put in. It's beautiful. It's a citrus rose, and it smells heavenly. Most of the plants that are in here are irises and daylilies. There's sedum. There's columbines. And my favorites. As you'll see everywhere that we go, these are my favorites, forget-me-nots. So in these areas we've mulched in, and it's kind of a nice little entry point to the yard. This is a really pretty clematis that I put in about 3 to 4 years ago. Last year, for the first time ever, it got completely eaten by deer. So what you see here now is what came up from that disaster, and that's why I have all this stuff around it now, because I wasn't too happy about that. And in the base of it, there's just a sedum, which gets little yellow flowers, and I just think it kind of looks nice as a base for the clematis. So you can bet I'm deer spraying it this year. Now this is the area, it's actually right alongside of our street. So whatever salt and everything, gets put on the street. I don't do anything to protect these, but believe it or not, this Solomon seal comes up every year, inches from the roadway, and it does well. So I guess it's not really harmed by that. I transplanted some pieces of hostas in here also, and they don't seem to have suffered from the effects of salt or anything. And now, just recently, I've put in a couple of bleeding heart plants, a Japanese painted fern, and this is just hyacinths. It's pretty much finished blooming now. But all of this kind of is a nice little setting for an understory for this Japanese maple. And I just kind of think it looks nice with the rock here and the bird bath. Okay, this is the view coming out of my front door. It's my favorite little spot in the yard. As you can see, I really like forget-me-nots. It started with one basket full of forget-me-nots from my neighbor that used to live below me. And every year, when I pull them out, I just shake them out, and the seeds come up everywhere. So you'll see them everywhere in my yard. This is one of my favorite sitting spots when I come out in the morning. The sun comes up over there, and I'm sitting here in my sea of blue. And my clematis are just starting. They already have buds, so they should be probably blooming within a week or so. This is a lilac clematis. And as you can see, we have hostas in here, and we have a lot of ground cover also. There's yellow nettle and daffodils. There were so many daffodils in here maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. They're all finished blooming now. And these are irises. This is a Dutch iris. It's not going to bloom probably for another month. Okay, this is my original batch of hosta. This was here when I moved in. It was huge. I have divided this probably 25 times. You will see everywhere you see hostas in my yard, they came from this batch. And this is what I use to keep the deer from eating them. It's called Deer Stopper 2, and it has a cinnamon scented repellent in it. And I mean, you could see that they haven't been eaten, so I guess it works. Okay, when we moved here in '99, there were 2 huge pine trees, like right around on either side of the entrance to the doorway. And we didn't like them for a couple reasons. They just didn't have any real zing to them, and they did attract wasps. two things that I didn't really like right by my front door. So we took them out and we put in, my husband and my kids bought me this weeping cherry tree one year for Mother's Day. This Japanese maple I bought, one Japanese maple, and all of the Japanese maples on my property have come from seeds from this Japanese maple. The dogwood tree actually was here when we moved in, but it died. I cut it all the way down to a stump, and it came back up around the stump. And it's been there probably for, I don't know, 20 years now. The birch tree, the river birch, that was here when we moved in. I do like the birch trees, but they're very messy. They drop a lot of little catkins. There was another one right here, and we decided to take that one out. So there's just a little round garden here now, and that's the way that we wanted the front yard to look. So this is another interesting plant. A lot of people know it as a silver dollar plant. The seed pods are like a transparent or translucent cover for the actual seeds. And if you rub them in your fingers, the seeds will fall out, but people use the dried silver dollars for dried flower arrangements. And I'm sure that most of you would have seen them at some point or another. I'll see if I can find one. I'm not sure if I still have any of them, but the story behind them, I never really, went out in search of these, but my father, who passed away in December of 2012, had these all around his yard in Newcastle, where I grew up. And whenever we moved him to Bethel with us, I decided I had to take some of the plants. So I started out with, I think, 3 of them, and they get hundreds of seeds. All of these little ones that you see, those are all babies. They bloom the second year. So the first year that you put them in, they won't bloom. But all of these ones, I think they're beautiful. Some of them are completely purple, and some of them are variegated white and purple. So anyhow, that's the story behind the silver dollar plants. Just one of my favorites. Okay, this little patch here is also one of my favorite spots. This is called Siberian bugloss, or greater forget-me-nots. That's what I call them. They are such a beautiful blue color, one of my favorite colors in the garden. And apparently they really like this spot because I started out with 3 of them. And there are tons of them now. They do reseed very, very easily. And I think they really like the shaded, it stays cooler. Must be a perfect spot for them. They looked really pretty framing this patch of daffodils, but the daffodils are past their prime now. Anyhow, I had put some big rocks around here in the middle. You can't really see them right now, but once these flowers die back, it still looks very nice, and I'm able to transplant. I am able to transplant these anywhere. They're very easily transplanted. Here we are in another little area. This is a bridal wreath spirea. You could see that they kind of bloom kind of continuously for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but they don't all come out at once. So this branch right here is ready to bloom, and some of them don't even have the buds all out on them yet. But it's such a pretty little flower, and it's, I think, a very interesting shape too. It kind of grows whatever way it wants to. It's not a bush and it's not really a tree, but it's a pretty color, and that's why it's in here. And then right behind it, this is ready to bloom, probably not for another 1.5 weeks to 2 weeks. This is a Miss Kim lilac. It gets the real tiny lilacs, and it smells unbelievable. One of my favorite scents in the garden. And all of these plants down below here, these are all garden phlox. Again, these are things that I started out with my neighbor. She gave me 2 or 3 clumps of them. And I started putting them different places, and they definitely spread on their own. I think they look really nice. A lot of my yard is more of a I guess, a free form garden because I don't like anything real structured. So that's what we're in here. Kind of an unstructured, beautiful spot. This is a nice little patch. It really is the only place that I have these in a clump. I have one or two around other places, but these are lungwort. And I think they're so pretty because they have the polka dots on the leaves, but the flowers they're like pink and blue, and I don't know, they just kind of make you smile when you see the flowers. They're a really nice color. And you can see again, I have some more of the money plants here. But this section was really devoted to the lungwort. And apparently it likes being under this tree, so that's where it has stayed. We have some more garden phlox. And now we're getting into the columbines. Tons. I have tons of columbines all over the yard. They're not blooming yet, but they are also a very pretty perennial. They probably get about this tall, and they get really nice flowers, not big flowers, but in mass like this. They look superb. Here we are with a ground cover. This is called Veronica Speedwell. It's another color. As you can see, I really like blue flowers, but I think it's a beautiful color. And it fills in this area real nice because I don't really want to have to mulch here and, you know, figure out what to put in. And if I do decide to put something in, I can just rip this out, make a hole, plant something, and I'm good to go, just like that. But the ground cover does spread. It's not as fast spreading as some other ground cover, but like I was just saying, I think this patch is probably about 3 years old, starting from individual little plants. And I just think it looks nice. It's a good color to set off the rest of the plants around it. This patch these are Siberian irises. They will get a little taller and they will get a really, really pretty bluish purple iris flower, but it's only a small iris. It's not one of the big ones. This was my original patch of them. Again, my neighbor had given me a patch of them. I've taken multiple cuttings out of here. I've just digged out a clump. I've given them to people. I have transplanted them around the garden. I just think they're beautiful. I think they're pretty even when they're not in bloom, but they are spectacular when they're in bloom. And they are paired with columbines here. I just like the pairing of the actual plants and when they're in flower. I just think they look really nice together. And as you can see, both of those things tend to reseed and come up on their own. This is a big patch of ajuga. It's edible. I don't eat any of this stuff, but I know that that's an edible plant. But the reason that I have it in here is, number one, I love the color, and number two, it's absolutely a honeybee attractor. The honeybees love this, and we're all trying to get honeybees to come into our yard, so this is a good way to do it. Again, it's interspersed with a lot of my forget-me-nots and columbines and garden phlox. It looks very nice clumped together. This is in the stonecrop sedum family. I have this other places and I transplanted this, and I am looking everywhere for these terracotta containers. They really are a tube. They don't have a bottom, and I think they make the best planters. They're very, very durable, but the plant can go right into the ground. So you don't have to worry about the drainage and all that stuff. If anybody knows where you can get those, let me know, because I think that's probably the best idea to plant stuff in outside. And I have never had to worry about this. It comes up every year. Okay, this is another garden area. This rose behind me, I thought it was going to be a small rose bush, but it obviously is a climbing rose. It gets small, really, really red roses on it, and it's absolutely gorgeous, but it just doesn't like to stop growing. So I put a lot of stuff underneath it that gives some color and some substance to the base. Orange poppies under here, yellow spirea, golden spirea, I'm sorry. And again, a ton of forget-me-nots. And I just think this is a nice little area. These rocks were in here when we moved in, so I kind of had to find something that would fit in around them. And this is a nice, I have to block it off obviously because the deer really like this too, but I do spray this area. This plant that you just saw on the ground, that is a baby Japanese maple, and it's it's how I got all of my Japanese maples in my yard, except for the big one that I bought. When they come up like this, they come up in mulch, or they come up in mulch actually more often than they come up in dirt. I do dig these out. I make sure I get all the roots, and then I pot them in good potting soil. And we have had them at some of our plant sales in past years, but they were really, really small. I've learned that it's better if I give them a few years to catch up, and then I'll show you later. I have one that's already started. It's going to be going to our plant sale this year. But that's what they look like when they come up on their own from the seeds. This area with these stones, somebody had given me these stones, and I didn't do anything with them until about, it's either 3 or 4 years now, I can't remember exactly, but I had a Japanese maple that I started, like I said, and it was maybe about this big in a pot. And I thought, you know, we took out an old pine tree, which was here, gave it a few years for the acidic soil to settle down, and then I thought I would like to put something here just to set it off. So we have the stones around it. We planted the maple tree. I have black-eyed Susans planted in here. I have some of those little irises that I was talking about, the Siberian irises. Here's some more of them. And then I just decided to put in a little bit of ground cover. It's a sedum. I think it's also in the stonecrop sedum family, but I can't remember the exact name of it. But it does get a little yellow flower. It'll look like a little mass of yellow. And I believe it does stay green all year. It's not like it just dies off or anything. So I just like it. If you don't like where it is, it uproots so easily that it's never been a problem for me. And I just kind of like it. And I actually see some of my little violas came up from last year. I had a pot there. Some of my violas popped up from last year. This is another area where a Japanese maple is anchoring the scene. This is a bleeding heart. There are various colors. I have a white one up front that I haven't put in yet for this year. These two are a match. This plant I don't even try to transplant. It does not like to be disturbed. This one's been coming up for probably at least 12 years. I think they're absolutely gorgeous, the flowers and the shape of the plant. So this has its own spot. Now, they supposedly are a shade plant, but as you can see, this one gets a lot of sun, and it has never seemed to bother the plant. There's one down at the bottom that's more in the shade, but this one's actually bigger, so go figure. This is one of the things that we were talking about earlier. This is a little Japanese maple that I discovered growing in the mulch. I think this one's I probably got this in the fall of last year. I discovered it, and I put it in a pot, and I've kept it protected with leaves over the winter. In the garden, I cover all these things with leaves during the winter, but this little plant will be at the sale. This is the only one I have this year that's big enough to actually sell. This is kind of an under deck area, and I'm not going to go up the other end of it because I'm not done with it yet. But this is all ground cover, and it will grow under the deck. The flowers that you see standing up in the back are a yellow nettle. They have the variegated leaves, and the flowers I think are really pretty, but don't put it anywhere that you're not willing for it to spread because it's very aggressive. This is more ajuga. It's in the shade instead of the sun, so what you saw earlier was the difference in the bloom time. If it's in the sun, it's going to be blooming already. These ones haven't really opened yet. And this beautiful plant is a lady's mantle. The leaves are very, very soft, and when the dew is on them in the morning, it honestly hangs on every little piece of the edge of the leaf, and it looks unbelievable. This is another plant that prefers shade. I had some under the maple tree, but this is a good little spot for it. It has kind of spread in some of these areas, but I'm trying to get it to go. It's not real good at propagating either. It doesn't like to be moved around. So you kind of have to just let it go where it wants to. This is my smartphone, which I never go anywhere without. But on my smartphone I have an app, and it's called Picture This. And I've had to download it. I believe the first year that you download it is free, but I have found out that it's like, I think $30 a year after that. But to me it's worth it. It has a section in here that's called My Garden. So I've gone around all the way around my garden, and I've taken pictures of plants that I wasn't sure what the name of, or I wasn't sure what the care requirements are. It also you can take them anywhere. You could take them on your walk through South Park, and you see a flower and you say, man, I really wish I had that in my garden. You can take a picture of it, find out what it is, maybe go to your garden center and pick up a plant or two. It really has some good information. Like, it will tell you the name of the common name and the formal name of the plant. It'll also say also known as, in case somebody calls it something different. It'll show you a bunch of pictures. It will show you whether they like sun or shade, whether they're aggressive, whether they spread or don't spread. It gives you a whole description of where the plant came from. Just about anything you can think of. And it even has part of the app is disease recognition. Like, if your plant has a problem, you could take a picture of that and find out what's wrong with it and maybe what you need to do to fix it. It has a whole lot more info. I don't want to go through and read everything that's on it, but it really does have a lot of information. There are a lot of other apps, I'm sure, that are out there, but this is the one that I've been using for years, and I think it's probably one of the better ones. It does help, because if you don't know what you're doing and you go out and spend a lot of money on this beautiful plant and you put it in the wrong place, or you fertilize it wrong, or it's too wet instead of being dry, you're going to be very upset. So I think even if it's $30 a year, I think it's worth the investment. Here I am with the Tree Haven Garden sign. We're going to put this sign up at our garden sale, which is going to be on Saturday, May 8th, the Saturday before Mother's Day, at South Park Shops from 9 till noon. And I just want to show you one of the things that we do here. This used to be my garden, my vegetable garden area. Chipmunks live in my garden, so I do not plant vegetables in here anymore. What I do is use it for a staging area. I dig up plants. All of our garden members will do this, but we dig up plants, we transplant them, we sometimes start them from other little seeds and stuff, and then we keep them in a protected area, and we bring plants that we have grown to the sale. So if you're interested in any of these things you're going to see, come on out and see us at the plant sale on Saturday, May 8th at South Park Shops. The question has come up on occasion as to how much time and effort does all of this take? Well, it takes a lot of time and effort. I will say, I also prepare taxes, so I can't really get outside too much before April 15th. But when it is over, this is my relaxation. Even though it's really hard work, and every year that you get older, it gets a little harder, honestly, nothing can compare to it, to me, as far as gardening. I get a lot of enjoyment out of, for sure, sharing my plants with people, just getting down there and digging in the dirt and, putting down mulch. And to me, it's very relaxing. It's hard work, but it's very relaxing. And I have my husband has mentioned on occasion that he would like to downsize, maybe go to something smaller because we don't need a real big house anymore. And I absolutely said, I am not leaving my yard. That is me. I could spend every waking hour out here. My husband has learned to cook and, you know, pretty much get everything ready from during tax season and into the planting season. It's just what I like to do. And it is a lot of fun. If you do have questions or you want to know about getting started, like I mentioned, if you come to our plant sale, we have a lot of kind of experts in our club that have been doing this for years, and they can share their tips and experiences with you, but it really does take a lot of time. I'm lucky enough that my husband will do the hedges and the grass, but almost all of the down in the dirt work is me. And I like trying new plants. I like moving things from sun to shade or shade to sun, see how they will do. It's just my passion. So that's why I'm a garden club member, and that's why I hope you all come out and see us.